Do you know what this place is called? The Japanese called it the Tsushima Strait. The Koreans call it the Korean Strait. The Chinese call it the Chinese Strait, and the Russians call it the Russian Strait. But obviously, the last two are a joke. Japan and South Korea are trying to set up a deal where they can build an underground tunnel and connect Busan and Fukaku together. The map is basically to connect Busan in South Korea and the Japanese cities of Fukuoka and Kita-Kyushu. They have an insane amount of people there too. The Japanese side has 5.5 million people, while Busan has 3.4 million people. The distance between these two countries is 180 kilometers, and the water that's set up between them is not that deep and has an average depth of 200 meters. This tunnel is going to kill a few birds with one stone. First of all, it's going to connect these two populated cities that connects two different countries. For the very first time, connect Japanese land to the rest of Asia. And of course, there's two Japanese islands in the middle of the way, and they're going to be connected to mainland Japan. The idea of connecting these two lands with a tunnel is nothing new. It actually started in the year 1917. When Japan was in absolute power in the area and the Korean peninsula is in their hand, so they want to connect mainland Japan to it. And the idea was brought up by this officer named Kuniaki Koizo. This idea was very important, but nobody took it seriously until we get to the 1930s. At this time, Japan not only has the Korean peninsula, but they pretty much have the entirety of Eastern Asia. So they are looking for a way where they can connect mainland Japan to the rest of Asia through Korea. The plan was to start digging in the year 1942, but now Japan is in the middle of a world war and can't continue to do so, so it gets put up on the back burner. The story of World War II is way too long to explain. Either way, Japan loses all that land and it goes back to the mainland. And finally, in the 1980s, the relationship between Japan and South Korea lift off once again. And when the relationship gets better, the idea of the tunnel is born again. When the idea came up in 1981, experts said it's gonna cost about $70 billion. And that's about $170 billion in today's money. Either way, they still have not began this project. And the people that live on these islands are literally waiting for this day to happen because they want to be connected with a tunnel. There has been plenty of different designs set up for this channel. It's gonna have 3 tunnels that connects each land, but some say to put a 60-kilometer bridge from Japan to Iki Island and then run a tunnel through these 2 islands to mainland Korea. It's gonna have 2 tunnels that carry the trains that go back and forth, and 1 tunnel in the middle to maintain the railway. And the middle tunnel is actually quite important and has to be there. The tunnel is gonna be ran underneath the sea, not through the sea. Pretty much like the Channel Tunnel that connects the UK to France. But of course, a lot of people are against the idea, and they say there needs to be tunnels so cars can go back and forth. But they say if you want to build a tunnel that can carry cars, you're gonna have to build a highway system. You can't build a 1 lane, and the biggest problem is the cost of it. When you build a tunnel for a train, you build 1 lane and it can go. But if you want to make one that could carry cars like a highway system, it's gonna cost a lot more and has to be much bigger. Anyone that wants to travel from Japan to South Korea and they want to ride a ferry, it's gonna take about 11 hours. But if they actually successfully design a train, that will be shaved down to just 50 minutes. The Japanese and the South Koreans believe if they actually execute this project, both of their economy is gonna thrive even more, and a lot more tourists will visit these areas. In terms of tourist attractions, South Korea needs it much more, because most of these tourists goes to the capital city of Seoul and they don't visit the rest of the country. But if they connect to Japan in the southern part. The southern part is gonna have a lot more tourists as well. Both countries have high-speed railing system. So if you connect both countries together, you can go from Tokyo all the way to Seoul in just 7 hours. And of course, a lot of other Japanese and South Korean cities would be connected in a short period of time. And let's say they make a deal with North Korea, they could even connect Japan to China. But it seems like it's quite hard for these two countries to work with each other. Of course, they have a very long history together, and it was not very good history, especially in terms of the Japanese on how they treated the Koreans. Before World War II, the Japanese always had the upper hand and treated the Koreans like dirt. They are also very racist towards Koreans, especially back then, and they don't see themselves as the same. Like for example, if a Japanese woman wants to get married with a Korean man, their family is not gonna be okay with it, and they're not gonna support that marriage. And they say you need to marry a Japanese man rather than a Korean or any other race. A lot of people know that Japan has no real immigration. But why is that? They don't accept anyone else other than Japanese to be a Japanese citizen. You can come and visit all you like, but don't stay. They basically don't count them as a citizen and force the person to leave. Experts and politicians from both countries are trying to make this tunnel work so they can execute this project one way or another. But the people aren't a fan of this idea. The governments think of economics, but the people aren't a fan of each other. Just like we said, the cost of this project is going to be around $170 billion, and if they take any longer, it's going to continue to go up. If they actually began this project, it will be one of the most expensive mega projects in history. Like the Channel Tunnel that connects the UK to France, and it was finished in the year 1994, it cost about $21 billion in today's money, which is about $10 billion back then. A lot of different countries and companies are willing to invest in this project because the return on investment is huge. You're basically connecting two populated countries with a whole lot of cities together, so the amount of money you can make from this is insane. Either way, the project and the engineering is ready to go. But all there is left to do is to convince the people that this is a good idea.